guys, I'm Eliza Wood, this is my channel, and let's talk about Disney princesses. Specifically, my favorite one, which is Cinderella. I adore Cinderella. She is my favorite Disney princess, but don't ask me why, because I don't know. I just like her. But for the longest time, I wanted one of her gowns, and then the Lily Evans dress came out, and I had to have it. So a couple years back, I made it for myself. But I can't wear that one to all of the different places that I want to be. I very much want to be able to actually wear a Cinderella dress around everywhere. So I've decided to make a wearable version of it. Good thing I have all the extra fabric from when I made the Lily Evans dress. Alright, let's do a quick box opening. Kind of. This is my Cinderella box. I moved in the process of making the Cinderella Ballgown, so I had its own box to keep it separate from everything else so I wouldn't get anything mixed up or lose anything. When I was done with the Cinderella Ballgown, I then put everything back in the box, and I haven't gone through it again since. Now there's been other stuff that's been put into the box as well as the Cinderella stuff. So right now I'm going to go through and see what fabrics I have still from Cinderella and what I might need to get in order to make this dress. So first of all, we have some ruffles that are clearly coming apart, so I'll probably have to redo them. But the nice thing is they've already got fishing line in the hem, so I really just have to redo where it was gathered. And there's quite a lot of it, so I think there's enough at least for one round of frills around the bottom. Then I have this fabric, which I have a lot of, probably only really enough for one skirt and maybe the bodice. And then I have this fabric, which I got a lot of for the gown, but I think I had decided that it was much too opaque. There wasn't enough sheerness to it to get the rest of the colors through. So whatever I bought of this, I still have of. I don't know how much I bought of it, but I have quite a lot. So this is gonna be really helpful. More ruffles. Good, good. Nice shiny ruffles. Probably enough for another round around the bottom of the dress. There's a lot of this white fabric, but it's pretty much all in scraps, so I don't know if I'm going to get a lot out of it. Oh goodness. Okay. So I don't know that I can get a skirt out of it. There is this big chunk here, which maybe might be a skirt, but I'm not really sure. This is all just pretty much useless to me. This lace was used, I believe I was gonna use it, I don't think I wound up using it, but I was gonna use it on the undergarments for Cinderella's gown. So I have quite a lot of this because I don't think I wound up using it. But honestly, I don't think it really works, so I probably won't use it again. This is the cotton muslin that I dyed blue, and I made the undergarments out of this fabric. It might be enough to make the bodice out of. I'm not super fond of it. It's nice to be against the skin, but the color just kind of looks a bit drab. So we'll see if I use this. It might look okay once I have layered some other things on top of it. I have a lot of scraps of this fabric, and in the Cinderella gown, it's very hard to see it, but in the Cinderella gown, this fabric was used on the bodice to give it a little bit of that nice sheen to it. I think I can use it again if I have small enough pieces, because all the pieces I have of this fabric is scraps, so I might be able to use it again on my cottage core dress, but that's very iffy. Oh, and I bought two things of that lace because I really thought I was going to use it and apparently did not. Now this is the actual bodice fabric. It's a much better, brighter blue, So I will probably wind up using this one because it fits the color scheme a little better, and just get rid of that. Oh, I do have this ribbon. I don't think I have a lot of it though, so I don't think it'll be very useful. I'll keep it out just in case, but I don't think it'll be very useful at all. That's a bummer. I was kind of hoping that I had more of this purple fabric in here. This purple fabric, the blue fabric, and I think I had some aqua fabric that I'm not seeing in here. Gave the skirt a nice, like, watercolory look to it. It looks like I do not have enough of the purple fabric, so I probably won't be able to achieve that watercolory effect, but it might be for the better because since I can't achieve that watercolory effect, I can definitely use this material. The only thing that I am missing, I do not have enough fabric for, is the skirt. I have enough fabric to make multiple layers of sheer for the skirt, and what I might wind up doing is making base layers using this fabric of everything, and then give it this fabric, and then this fabric. That way I can get the sparkle on top and still have some kind of shift of color, although I might not use this. But that way I can use up that other blue fabric. I got a whole bunch of that. I can use that up, but I do need, since all of the layers are sheer, even if I put multiple layers, it'll probably be enough that I won't have an issue. I'm thinking I might just, looking at, like, if I have a whole bunch of this fabric on top of each other, it's not actually as see-through as I was fearing. It's only really if you have one that you can see through, and then multiple won't be as big of an issue. So I'm probably going to try just making the dress with the fabrics that I have, and then if I still find it to be a little too sheer, at the end I can add a skirt inside the middle. I will still use my cotton fabric for the bodice because I don't want to put a lot of layers on the bodice. It'll get too bulky and it just won't look good. So I'm using a bodice block that I made recently. I actually used the first half of the month to make this bodice block, and I hate it. But I didn't want to waste any more time trying to make another pattern. So I used this bodice block to make my pattern. I altered it slightly to match one of the bodices in Patterns of Fashion 2, my favorite one. It's got all of the Victorian patterns in it, and you know that is my favorite historical fashion era. In the back I have a rounded hem that ends just before the armhole. I also opened up the neckline and pulled the shoulder out. In the front I made the same sort of alterations and extended the waistline. Gotta have that little bit of a peak at the bottom. Normally I would make a mock-up out of muslin, but I didn't want to because it took too long to do the mock-up of the bodice block, so I just skipped it and went straight to cutting out the lining. My chief editor did try to warn me that I shouldn't skip steps, but alas, I continued to cut out all the layers despite the whole crew's interferences. March 23rd, and I have cut out the pattern pieces for the bodice, not including the sleeve. I haven't even thought about the sleeve yet. That's a future me problem. But I have all 4 of my bodice pieces all cut out. I have 3 different kinds of fabric for the side pieces and the back piece. The blue cotton, the white sparkly sheer fabric, and the blue sparkly sheer fabric. On the front, you can see a slight difference in the color from the front to the back. I did not bother to cut out the pattern piece for the blue in the front because I just plan on doing a draped gather in the front, so I didn't want to waste the fabric of covering that when it's just going to be again covered with more of this fabric. But everything's all cut out. I just need to sew it together, but I forgot to check to see if I actually still had any of that thread or anything that would work. So I'm gonna go do that and hope that I don't have to go to the store. Before anything could fray, I sewed all the pieces together. This little corner here was such a pain in the butt. I couldn't get the darn thing to have a smooth turn. Alright, so it is the 24th. I have finished putting together the bodice. Here it is. Camera's too close, I can't really zoom out, so I have pinned the tops and bottoms of the bodice and it really needs an iron. But I was thinking about it and I believe that I actually should finish the skirts before I finish the bodice, because the way to finish the bottom of the bodice is to attach the skirts to it. So what I think I'm gonna do is take a break from the bodice and work on the skirts, which means first and foremost I have to figure out how much fabric I have. I want to do a circle skirt, but the volume of the circle skirt is going to be entirely dependent on the amount of fabric I have. So let me go check real fast and see what I have. Good news, I have plenty of fabric. I have about 2.5 yards, which I say about because I didn't actually measure it. My family has found that from the tips of one finger all the way down your arm to the opposite shoulder, about, for me it's about here, is a yard. So I did my measurements like that, and I didn't get exact measurements, but it doesn't really matter. So I got about 2.5 yards of the white sparkly fabric, about 5 yards of the blue sparkly fabric, and about 10.5 yards of the not a sheer fabric. And then I used the Mood circle skirt calculator to find that I don't remember what my waist is, but about 6 inches was my radius for making my correct waist measurement. So if I do a 6-inch radius with 52-inch fabric, I fold it in half, I will have about a 20-inch long skirt, and I am happy with that. I don't want to go too long. I don't like it going all the way down to my knees, and as long as it's not going to flip up and show my butt, I'm happy with the length of it. So I am probably going to do one layer of both the blue sheer and the white sheer sparkly fabrics, and then I haven't quite decided how many layers of the less sheer fabric I'm going to use, because I'm hoping that I can use enough of that fabric that it won't be see-through and I won't have to put something underneath to cover, you know, for decency's sake. I'm thinking maybe 3 skirts from that. I also don't want to bulk it up too much, but I want to put in the ruffles on 2 of the skirts so that I can get a little bit more fullness at the bottom, and you can get that nice, you can see the ruffles that's on the Cinderella skirt on this skirt as well. So I'm either going to do 2 or 3 skirts of the non-sheer fabric. It'll depend on how many ruffles I have, or how much ruffles I have, and how much the sheerness is canceled out by layering it. Because if only 2 doesn't do enough, but 3 does, I will certainly put another skirt on. But if 2 and 3 don't do enough, then I will have to go to the store and buy some fabric to use as a base layer for this skirt, which I'm really hoping not to have to do. For the skirt, I wanted something really simple. So despite all my desires to do some historical thing, I decided just to make some circle skirts. I used the Mood circle skirt calculator to figure out how much diameter I would need to cut out for the waist, and then the total length. Unfortunately, the chalk didn't show up too well on this organza fabric, and it really just got everywhere. So after the first skirt, everyone after was cut just using this one as a stencil. I do not recommend this. It was so wibbly wobbly, and none of the skirts were actually the same size. Also, spoiler alert, don't forget to add seam allowances. The width of the not so sheer fabric is a little smaller than the organza, so I did have to make some side seams. Alright, so I was looking at my not so sheer fabric in the sunlight, which somebody suggested to me. Very glad that they did, because I layered it on with 2 layers, and just looking through a camera, you can't really see anything, but if you then look through the sunlight, you can kind of see my arm in the side here. So once the sunlight went through, even if it was 4 or 6 layers of fabric, I think you'd be able to see at least the shape of my legs. And since I want to wear this dress to work, I have to put something underneath. Now I do have a pair of bloomers that I made a long time ago that I might use for now just as a modesty layer, and then deal with the rest of it, or I might even wear the Cinderella bloomers underneath it just as a modesty layer, and then maybe add a skirt later on when I have some extra fabric, because I really do want this to be entirely, well, not entirely, there is some material I had to go buy, but mostly just using some leftovers. The other issue that I found is that this fabric is actually not as wide as my other fabric, and since I did my measurements based on the width of the other fabric, this one is gonna be too small, which is fine. What I'll do is I'll just put some seams into those ones. I'm probably gonna put some side seams in because my other option is to put a front and back seam, and I think they will, even if it is just a little bit, be visible. I don't want them to be visible in the front. Unfortunately, that means I still will have to cut the back so that I can attach it to the bodice and have something there that I can close. But I think it'll look better to have the side seams and cut the back like I'm gonna do on the other skirts than it would to have a front and back seam just for the sake of having an open back seam. Alright, so my circle skirts are cut out, but I've come to the realization once again that I'm stuck. I can't move any further. They have to hang so that the biases will loosen as they will anyway, and then I can even out the bottoms, because honestly, look at these bottoms. They're like all over the place. I really didn't care all that much to make them even. I mean, this one's waistband is like 2 different sizes, so I was not trying that hard to make them even, because I figured I would just even them out later, and or I would add some frills at the bottom, which would then make them even. So for now, they're just gonna hang here, and I'll go back to working on the bodice. And while those skirts are hanging, the crew is going to help me add the boning channels. I'm going to have to talk to the cameraman though, because I have no idea what's going on with this screen. But anyway, I lined a double-folded bias tape so that the center fold follows the seam of the bodice. Then I felled down both sides by hand, and finally stitched in the ditch to complete my boning channels. I totally forgot to add some extra fabric in the back to give the lacing channels a bit more structure, so I just measured out a strip for the back that I can fold over. I was really good this time around, and I not only ironed the back strip, but also the boning channels. Alright, so I had to go back to my phone because my camera is currently full and I haven't yet figured out how to put all the pictures from my camera onto my computer, so I just have a full card right now. So I gotta figure out that, but right now I don't have the time because I really need to finish my Cinderella dress. I went ahead and wrote down, which you can't see, hold on, there you go, a whole list of what still needs doing. And while I did break it up into the like smallest portions, like one of the things is attach a back panel, like the minorest bits, I did break it down into that. It is this whole page, just this whole list is stuff I need to get done before March 31st, and it is the 28th of March. So I have 3 days to get like 30 things done, and I really need to get started, especially because this weekend is Easter, so I probably won't even really get to work on it this weekend. That's what I have as of right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on my thing. I think if I can get the bodice done, or at least mostly done today, that will make me so happy. I don't expect it to happen, but it would make me really happy. But for now, I'm just gonna do them one thing at a time, starting with attach the back panels. Once the back strip is attached to the bodice, I added another bit of bias tape so I can fold everything over and create another boning channel. And since we're working with the bias tape anyway, I went ahead and sewed it to the top of the bodice. Now this tape is entirely the wrong color, because how dare Joann's not have every single color in the spectrum. Anyway, I'm just going to entirely fold the bias tape back and fell it in place so it'll be invisible. Okay, so I need to warn you, I was basing Cinderella's bodice off of the different dresses from the 2015 Cinderella movie, but I had no idea what I was doing. So this next part is a lot of me just kind of floundering. So I took a huge chunk of the top layer, and no, I did not measure it because I can never find a single person who can tell me how much to add for gathers. Anyway, then I used my sewing machine to create a single line that I could pull and gather the fabric. This line is going to be used to accent the under bust. I'm not going to lie to you, it kind of reminds me of those princess gowns you can get on Amazon, where maybe the machine that's automatically making these dresses messed up and the line is totally crooked and you can tell that the sewing machine went off and did its own thing. Once I had it gathered, I just draped the rest of the fabric so that it sit nicely down to the base and the neckline. Unfortunately, I neglected to mark the lines evenly, so it's a little crooked. Then I hand sewed everything down. Unfortunately, I totally forgot that my towel turban would be blocking the view, so my main cameraman jumped in to entertain y'all. I happened to have some metal boning, so I cut out the lengths with metal shears, only to promptly decide they were too stiff and switch back over to the cheap plastic boning I get from cutting out the zip ties. Then I tacked down the gathering under the bust, just to make sure it doesn't shift around when I'm moving. Alright, so it's March 31st. Happy Easter. And my last day to get my dress done. I did not film it all yesterday, although I got a lot done because my boyfriend's been here and I didn't want to film in front of him because I haven't gotten used to that. So I got some things filmed yesterday, but I didn't get a lot. So let me just explain what happened yesterday. So I was able to attach the front piece, the blue gathered bit. I've attached that piece to the bodice. I added some of the bones, but then I realized that I needed to put in the sleeve before I could add the rest of the bones because the sleeve is the top of one of the boning channels. So I stopped doing the bodice, I went over to the skirt, and I was going to do an elastic waistband for the skirt just to make life easy. I was thinking about it, just decided to do a separate skirt, then a bodice. I was planning on doing just the elastic waistband, make my life easy and all that, but I thought I had elastic, so I never went to the store. Turns out I did not have elastic. So I wound up finding, while I was looking for elastic, some more ribbon. I'm sorry about how shaky my hand is. I'm trying to do this quietly in my bedroom because my boyfriend's still sleeping in the guest room. So anyway, so I decided to just do a tied ribbon in the back, which means I still had to make the waistband. I didn't have enough of the cotton fabric to make the waistband in one single go, so I had to sew 2 strips together and then pretty much bind the top of the dress with the waistband. So pretty much every single time I bind something, I did that with the waistband. And then I threaded the ribbon through the waistband and now it is wearable. So this morning I just cut the bottom of the skirt so that they're even. I have the feeling they're probably still not even, but I think that it's to the point that it's not noticeable. So I definitely have it shorter in the front than the back because I had it on backwards so I could tie the tie without thinking about it, and was like, oh, this is too short. And then I turned it around so that I could have it, the tie in the back like it's supposed to be, and the back was just long enough that it was no longer too short. So I was like, oh good, that's perfect. So now for today, today's Easter, so I'm definitely doing dinner with the family. So I have to attach the frills to the bottom, which is the plan, but I'm gonna try putting it on first and see how I like it, and then truly decide if I want to put it on. And then I have to hem the bottom of the skirt, and then the skirt will be done. I also have to cut out the sleeves and attach them and hem them and pretty much everything with the sleeves. I haven't even started the sleeves. And then I have to add the bones to the bodice and bind the bottom, which I can't tell if that sounds like a lot or a little, but I'm afraid I wanted to wear it to dinner tonight, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Also, sorry I'm not looking at the camera. I keep forgetting that the camera is over there, so I keep looking over here, and when I remember the camera is over there, it's when I'm looking at you, but at the same time, it's hard to remember to look over here because I want to look at the thing that's moving over there, so I'll look over here, or that way somewhere, so that I don't look at the camera. It's just a thing. Of a rolled hem around some fishing wire to stiffen the hems of the skirt. It was at this point that I decided that I could not do my New Year's resolution. It was not working, I was not getting the project done, so I decided to put it down for a later date. And 2 months later, I'm gonna start work on the sleeve. Because it's a puff sleeve, I quickly sketched up a sleeve pattern without too much concern about making it fit, and then I cut it up to make it even bigger. Then I cut out both the white and blue organza for the sleeve. I want to deal with making as little sleeve as possible, so I'm just going to sew these 2 layers together at the beginning and treat them as one whole layer. And I can use that sewing line to gather the fabric and attach it to the bodice. Then it's just 3 strips of fabric sewn to the bottom of the sleeve, wrap it around and fell it down. Unfortunately, it seems I have lost the film that had the finishing of the skirt, so really all I did was I added a waistband by cutting a strip of cotton fabric that's long enough for the waist, wrapped it around the several skirt fabrics, and then felled it down on both sides, leaving a little bit of space to be able to thread through a ribbon so that I could tie it more tightly. Okay, but back to the actual bodice. I added the bones, but never actually closed them off, so now I'm just adding more bias tape to the bottom, folding it over, and felling it down again. Alright, it is May something, which of course means that I have failed at my New Year's resolution of 1 project a month, but I am super close. So I have this bodice is almost done. I added the sleeves and everything. I have finished the bottom. So the only things left is I have to attach the grommets to the back so I can actually close it. But the skirt's done. I have to finish the top frills here because I thought they were cute, so I wanted them to stick up, but I didn't do any sort of hemming or anything at the top. So I'm going to finish it with fire! That didn't work out as well as I thought it was going to, but... Okay. So this fabric is polyester fabric, so it's just melting as I hit it with some fire. So I just gotta be careful because my cotton fabric will actually catch fire. Now, if you're ever having a bad day, I highly suggest putting some grommets into a piece. First, you stab it, then you pull it open with an awl, then you add a little metal grommets and smack them with a hammer. But I will warn you, my hands were numb by the end of this. But finally, we get to the finishing touches, lacing up the bodice. All right, there you have it. It's kind of blocked by Luthien right now. Ma'am, I need you to move. You're in the way. You can't see my beautiful work. Okay, so there you have it. I've got my little Disneybounding, history-bounding Cinderella dress. It's mainly Disneybounding. I wanted to go for a Victorian bodice, but honestly, I don't think it came across. So it's mostly Disneybounding. But I'm really happy with it. I love the swoosh of this skirt. Though I will say I will never wear this skirt without shorts underneath. It is kind of short, especially with the poofiness of it. Like if it were just sticking down, it's long enough, but since it sticks up, it's kind of short. And with the swoosh, it gets even shorter. But again, I'm wearing shorts underneath, so it's okay. Really happy with the sleeves as well. I love how poofy they are. I would have liked them to be a little bit shorter, but I think it still looks cute. I actually think the Cinderella dress actually looks more like the cartoon version of the Cinderella dress than the live action version of the Cinderella dress, but that's okay. It still screams Cinderella, which is what I wanted. So there is a couple things that I'm not so happy about. Mainly in the bodice. So I used a bodice block that I made and I wound up being super unhappy with, so I don't even know why I used it, but I think at that point I was just done with everything. So I used a bodice block to make my pattern, which unfortunately means that this bodice should be like more corset-like, but it's really not. So it's just kind of a block and it kind of doesn't look as snatched, if that's the right word, as I would have liked. I was really trying to make this dress so that I could wear it to work. And again, my work is very lax on their professional attire, but they would not appreciate the short skirt. I was trying to make it longer, but it just didn't have enough fabric, and my bodice is a little shorter than I had meant it to be. So if I had made the bodice just a little bit longer and or the skirt just a little bit longer, I could have worn this to work. But another thing that I tried to be able to wear it to work is a higher neckline than I normally do. But unfortunately, I did a little too high or I didn't take in enough. So there's actually, it sticks out in the front here when it should really be a lot closer to the chest. So that's something I'm not super fond of, but it is what it is. And then the last thing that I'm not super fond of is this gathered piece in the front. I wasn't really sure how to do it, so I kind of just draped it onto place. And I thought I got it pretty even, but when I put it on after finishing the bodice, I actually found out that it is slightly crooked. It kind of leans in that direction. So, unfortunate, but it is what it is, and I think it's super cute. I went ahead and wore it out today. But thanks so much for sticking around, even though I wasn't able to finish this in the month that I had originally wanted to finish it. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, constructive criticisms, I will be so happy to receive them in the comments down below. If you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you're curious about any future projects, go ahead and subscribe. Also, I know that my outro has already been completed, but I have recently created myself a Patreon account. So if you're at all interested in seeing what I'm working on, I intend to start trying to work on my projects long before I actually post them onto YouTube. So if you're at all interested in seeing what projects I'm working on ahead of schedule, then please check that out below. You can also check out my Instagram where I post some process pictures, and my TikTok where I have some fun little videos of just shorts where I get dressed up and do some fun shorts. But that's all, folks. Bye-bye!